Hey guys, Daz here. Now today I'm going to show you how to go around a used car and assess that vehicle to see if it's worth buying. As a motor dealer, and I've bought thousands of cars over the last 38 years, and at auction I sometimes only have 30 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes to completely go around a motor vehicle and see what it's like and see if it's worth buying. And I have to know yes or no if it's worth putting my money, if it's worth paying thousands of dollars for a vehicle without really knowing a lot about it. So I'm going to take you around and show you what motor dealers and vehicle assessors do to check over a used car, just to find out what it's like before we buy it. Okay, let's go. Okay, so first port of call, I always find it easiest is to come into the engine bay and have a look. So I'm going to start off, first thing I always do is to remove the oil cap. And several reasons I'm doing that. I'm having a look underneath the oil cap, and in here I don't want to see any like white milky cappuccino sort of foam residue, because if there is, what's happening is you're getting some of the coolant is getting up into the head of the motor and getting into the oil, and that means you've either got a cracked head or a blown head gasket, and that's a really big warning to stay away and don't touch the vehicle, because although you could replace the head gasket or the head, which is going to cost a lot of money, you may be up for another complete engine. So if you're seeing white under there and the vehicle's been running for a little while, that is a big telltale sign to stay right away. So doing that there, this vehicle's just driven, had a long drive here. It's best if the vehicle's been sat for a while. Now I'm just going to have a look at the oil, and it's not so much to measure the oil level, I just want to see the condition of the oil. So that motor oil there is pretty clean. It's not really clean, but it's recently had a service, and I can see that there's no moisture, there's no water or anything getting into the oil, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So the vehicle seems to me that it's been well serviced. It's not likely to have a lot of sludge in the motor, and that's a good telltale sign that the vehicle's been taken care of. Now while I'm doing dipsticks, I'm next going to go on to the transmissions dipstick. So if the vehicle you're looking at is an automatic, you want to have a look at the transmission dipstick if it has one. Now a lot of vehicles today don't have a transmission dipstick, but this being an older model Toyota, it does have one. Now using a different finger, a clean finger, I'm just having a look at the colour of that. It's usually a pinkish colour. This one's a bit brown, but that's okay. I'm having a smell because I don't want to smell anything burnt. I don't want to smell like a bacon sort of smell, like a burning piece of wood. That smells like it's just come straight out of the bottle, and it is a little bit brown. It's not so pink or red as it could be, but that is just normal used transmission fluid, and that ticks the boxes for me. That looks fine. Just a quick thing, I'm just going to have a look at the battery, try and get an idea. The green light is on inside the battery, so this battery is in good healthy condition, and there's plenty of life in that battery. Batteries aren't that expensive, but you don't want to have to be buying one straight away when you buy a car. So another thing I'm going to do now is have a look at the coolant bottle. Or on an older vehicle which doesn't have an overflow coolant bottle, I'll be looking at inside the radiator. I'm going to stick my fingers in there and have a bit of a look and a feel. Now in here we've got red coolant, which is good because it hasn't been topped up with lots of water, which can corrode inside the block of the motor and even rust out your radiator. The coolant in there looks good. It's not brand new, and that's a good sign, because if it was brand new, then the vehicle may have a coolant leak, or it may be using coolant, which again is a sign of a blown head gasket. So the fact that the coolant is not brand new, it's at the right level where it should be, and it's used, it's been in there for a while, that's a good sign. Just checking things like the brake fluid, power steering fluids, just looking at those, having a look at the the oil filter canister there. I can see that it's been recently replaced, so the vehicle has been serviced recently, and we can also tell that from the oil. Now I'm going to start the vehicle up, and I'm just going to have a little bit of a smell under the bonnet and a bit of a listen. So the vehicle started straight up first go, and I'm going to have a bit of a smell. Now the reason I'm having a bit of a smell is I'm smelling if there's any burning oil. If there's oil leaks around the engine, and now the vehicle's at operating temperature, you'll be likely to smell burning oil. And I can't really smell anything untowards under there. I mean, it's a dirty engine, but there's nothing leaking, there's no bad smells. I can't smell brake fluid. I can't smell oil. I can't smell coolant. It just smells as it should. Now, I'm listening to the motor. I don't want to hear any top end rattle or metal sounds or metal to metal. I don't want to hear any clanging or banging. For an older vehicle like this, which is 20 years old, it sounds fine. There's nothing there that warrants any further inspection. To me, that sounds fine. That sound there was the air conditioning compressor cutting in, which is completely normal. So that tells me that the air conditioner in this car is operating. So I'm pretty much satisfied. Bit of a suspension check. I'm pretty much satisfied with the mechanical condition in the front of the car. Now we're going to quickly have a look inside. Now what I'm looking for here is I'm looking at the tacho here, which is the revs per minute that the engine is turning over at. I don't want to see that needle quavering too much, except for when the air conditioner comes on. When the air conditioner compressor cuts in and cuts out, you can expect 50 or even 100 revs per minute change in the idle, but that's sitting right there on the 800 or just over the 800 mark. That was where the air conditioner compressor just kicked in. It just flicked up about 50 revs per minute. That is completely normal. I'm also checking for dash lights on here. We don't want to see a check engine light. We don't want to see ABS or airbag warning lights. There's no warning lights on there except that I've got the handbrake on, which is completely normal. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the car into reverse and drive. And what I want to see is that the vehicle uptakes the gear within about 1 second. We don't want to delay. We don't want it to go woo and drag from park into reverse. So I'm going to quickly go into reverse now. Bang. So straight into reverse. I'll do that again. Now, bang. 1 second later, I'm in reverse. Now I'm going to go down into drive, and I want the same thing to happen again. I can feel it. I can take my foot off the brake so I can actually feel the car jolt. Yep. So as soon as I go into gear, basically instantly the vehicle is responding. So the transmission to me looks to be fine. Little things like handbrake adjustment. It's nice if it comes on 5 or 6 clicks. It can otherwise be adjusted. That's okay. It's nothing to worry about. I'm going to give the steering a bit of a turn left and right. I'm feeling if there's any thumping or clicking, which could be a problem in the steering column or the steering box of the car. So I don't want to turn the wheel and it goes boom, 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 or or I get a shudder because the power steering's not working. I just want to feel just nice, smooth transition as I turn the vehicle. You will get a slight change in the revs because the power steering is working harder and working less, and that will change a little bit. So inside, we can check all the lights and indicators and things like that, but they're not so important. We're more interested in things that's going to cost us money to fix. Things that's going to cost $50 or $100 to fix, we're not really worried about. We're looking at things like engine, transmission, steering column, suspension, major brake problems. Anything else, is fixable, and then normal service items. I'm just going to spin the steering wheel around a bit now. I just want to have a look at the tyres on the front. So a lot of people think that if they like stick a matchstick or put their finger in a tyre, they know how much tread they've got left. The problem with that is that's not really where you should be judging your tyres for tread. Just here, if you can come in there, right there is a thing called a tread wear indicator. It's inside that groove, but it sits up a little bit. That shows me how much tread we've actually got above the TWI, above the tread wear indicator. On this vehicle, it's only about 1 millimetre. Now, although we have 3 or 4 millimetres of tread here, above the tread wear indicator, we've actually only got 1 millimetre. So there's probably only about 3,000 or 4,000 kilometres of safe life left in those tyres. When it gets down to the TWI, it's time to change the tyres. I'm also looking to make sure that the tread here, the tread there and the tread there is equally worn. We don't want to be worn out here, but high tread here. That would indicate suspension problems. That to me is evenly worn all over, so on both sides, and I don't expect there to be any real significant suspension problems with this vehicle. Now I'm going to just do a basic check around the vehicle. You might have seen people do this, but we just give a little bit of a push down on the rear suspension. So the shock absorbers or struts in here, it's their job to dampen out the shock. So it should go down, come up, and then pretty much cancel out. It shouldn't keep doing this. It should go down, bounce up, and level out. So when I push down, it goes down, up, and stop. That rear suspension is working fine on there. A little bit more of a bounce on this side, but it's still doing its job. It's still working. Other than that, the only other things we could look at is how much brake pad we have left on the brakes. Not expensive to replace brake shoes and pads, but you know, in the time I've gone right over the vehicle and I've checked out all the major things that you can check on a vehicle while it is stationary. Now, the only other things I would recommend that you check is that you take the vehicle for a drive, and on the drive, I expect you to drive along at 30 or 40 kilometres an hour. Take your hands just off the steering wheel, but be very close to it, and put the brake on a little bit harder than normal, and the vehicle, if the brakes are all working good, should pull up straight. If the vehicle pulls to one side, to the left or the right, then you've got something wrong with your braking system or your wheel alignment, and you should take it to a tyre shop and get that fixed. You should also be listening for noises coming from the wheels. You don't want to hear a whirring or a whining noise. If a vehicle is rear wheel drive, you want to be listening for the diff. You don't want to be hearing any clunking noises like metal to metal coming from the rear end of the car, because to repair a diff is very expensive. Now, other than that, if it ticks all those boxes, it's probably safe to go ahead and buy the car. Just remembering to keep an eye on the temperature of the vehicle. You want it to get up to at least halfway or normal operating temperature. You want to see that the thermatic fans kick in to cool down the radiator, or if it's an older vehicle, you want the main fan spinning and cooling the radiator down continually. If a vehicle starts to get hot and the fans aren't kicking in, then you'll either have a problem with your electric fans, or down in here you have a thermostat which opens and closes at a set temperature. It's usually something like around about 82 to 86 degrees. And how you can tell that it has opened is that you should be able to squeeze this pipe. If the vehicle, before it gets to operating temperature, it's normal for this to be rock hard and not be able to squeeze it. That is because the thermostat is closed, and that is normal. But once the vehicle gets up to operating temperature, you would expect the thermostat to open, and you would expect this to be squeezable and not inflating like a balloon. If this gets really rock hard once the vehicle is up to operating temperature, then that means that the thermostat in the housing is either partway closed or it's completely seized up. and that can lead to cooking of the engine and once again cracking the head or blowing the head gasket. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what we go over. Once you learn what to look for, you can go over a vehicle in 2 or 3 minutes and you can eliminate 90% of the problems that you would have by not checking those items. So just remember, the nose knows, the ear can hear a lot of things, you're listening for mechanical chatter and problems like that, and just make sure that the transmission uptakes within 1 second. If you have a manual vehicle, make sure that when you depress the clutch you don't get like a grinding, grating sound, because you'll soon be up for a new clutch and that's going to be expensive. And when you're driving a manual vehicle down the road, it should be easy to go from one gear to the other. You shouldn't like be crunching the gears or hearing clunking coming from the gearbox, and you definitely don't want to hear a whining sound coming from the gearbox. That's pretty much it. If you're going out to buy a used vehicle, be really careful. There's a lot of lemons out there, but what I've just showed you today in today's video will eliminate about 90% of the pitfalls. Okay, thanks very much. Please like and subscribe down below. Thanks.